Whispers in the mesh. In the shadow of Earth's orbit, a whisper threaded through the data streams like a phantom. It was almost nothing, a flicker of information among trillions of pulses humming through the orbital relay network. But to Commander Elara Rhys, it was a scream. Inside the Interstellar Intelligence Command's subterranean control center in Geneva, Elara stood motionless, eyes fixed on the holographic lattice projected before her. Code swam across the display like rain on glass, cascading down in foreign encryption patterns that no human had a right to possess, unless they were being watched. "Pause playback," she ordered. The lattice froze, and the glowing red line of the intercepted signal pulsed faintly in the darkened chamber. Halcyon, the facility's AI, responded with a voice smooth as velvet. "Quantum burst packet, unknown origin. Signal is routed through 3 ghost relays, with a destination in the SolNet's civilian layer. Estimated transfer duration, 0.0007 seconds." Elara narrowed her eyes. Civilian layer? What data was accessed? Halcyon paused, cycling. Mars defense schematics, layered decoy systems, drone protocols. Category, classified. Tier 4. Someone had tunneled into the most sensitive parts of Earth's defense infrastructure, then tried to erase their footprints. It was subtle, clever, almost perfect, but not perfect enough. "They slipped," Elara murmured. "They always do." She turned away from the display, her pulse quickening with a sharp cocktail of fear and fury. Earth had enemies plenty. The Galactic Council was meant to be a coalition of peace, a governing body of the stars. But behind its noble face lay the same tangled web of politics and predation that had plagued humanity for centuries. Earth was the newest member, the weakest, the smallest, and apparently the most underestimated. "We've found our leak," she said, more to herself than a Halcyon. And it came from inside the Galactic Council. Hours later, Elara sat in the secured strategy room with a handful of senior operatives. A translucent map hovered over the central table, displaying Earth's orbital stations, communication nodes, and one blinking red, the diplomatic compound of the Thalikai delegation. A cold silence blanketed the room. "They're not even subtle," said Director Malenko, his voice low and bitter. "The Thalikai have council-wide diplomatic immunity. It's the perfect cover." Elara stared at the blinking dot. "It's not just them. This encryption is layered in Vorn syntax. And some of the packet structure. Halcyon found markers from Hadric coding methods. This is a multi-faction op. You think the Council is spying on us?" Another operative asked, incredulous. "I think someone in the Council doesn't want us to reach parity, and they're willing to break their own laws to keep us on a leash." There was a moment of stunned silence. Then Elara leaned forward. "We need evidence. Concrete. Indisputable. If we move now, it'll be a diplomatic disaster. But if we prove they're violating the accord, they'll have no leg to stand on." The room buzzed with renewed purpose. They would surveil the Thalikai compound, tap their outflows, insert quiet eyes into the walls. It would be illegal, dangerous, treasonous if they failed. But if they didn't act, Earth would remain a pawn, a soft target for galactic powers with ancient teeth. Later that night, Elara stood alone in the observation deck of the command's orbital extension, Earth turning slowly beneath her like a painted marble. She sipped bitter coffee and stared into the void. She remembered the day humanity was accepted into the Council, how people celebrated in the streets like it was first contact all over again. For a moment, they believed they had found unity in the stars. But unity was a dream. The stars had their own monsters, and maybe humanity had only traded one cage for another. She set the coffee down. They thought Earth was weak, that they could play their games and we'd be too naive to notice. But they'd made a mistake. They forgot who we were. "We see you now," Elara whispered to the stars. "And we're coming." The game behind the mask. The wind blew hard across the compound rooftops in the Geneva diplomatic district, tugging at clouds that crawled across the night sky like ghosts. Beneath the glow of starlight and artificial moons, the Thalikai delegation headquarters shimmered with serene elegance. smooth obsidian walls, wrapped in silver leafing, humming faintly with protective shielding. Peaceful, immaculate. But beneath its grace, Earth's intelligence community saw something else. A wound, carefully stitched shut with diplomacy and lies. Commander Elara Rhys watched the building from a nearby high-rise, crouched beside a vent shaft as micro-drones zipped silently from her case. They buzzed like insects, tiny, wingless, equipped with light-bending film, barely detectable even by Council sensors. "Drone Alpha is inside," whispered Agent Vex through her comms. Optical feeds live, scrambling ambient scan logs to hide presence. Elara exhaled slowly. Proceed. The mission had no official sanction. Not even Earth's Prime Secretariat knew the full extent. Surveillance of a diplomatic envoy was not just illegal. It was a direct breach of the Galactic Accord. If they were caught, Earth's place in the stars could vanish overnight. But so could its freedom. On her wrist display, the drones painted a ghostly image of the compound's interior. Alien architecture pulsed with soft light, and through one room's glass wall, the unmistakable silhouette of Envoy Relatkan, the Thalikai's lead diplomat, stood speaking in low tones to a cloaked figure. The audio feed cracked, then stabilized. Data window open only 9.2 microseconds. Earth systems are evolving faster than projections. They're reaching parity in years, not centuries, said the cloaked one. A Vorn, judging by the clicking accent. We neutralize now, or we lose control. Alara's heart hammered. Neutralize? A third voice joined. Soft. Hissing. Not Thalikai. Not Vorn. Hadric. Human systems contain neural weapons design and adaptive swarm AI. If replicated, it would challenge the balance. The Vorn's voice darkened. We must cripple their quantum infrastructure. Now, Elara felt cold crawl up her spine. This wasn't just data theft. It was strategic sabotage. The Council wasn't simply watching Earth. They were preparing for something bigger, preemptive containment. Earth was rising too fast for their comfort, and they intended to halt it by any means necessary. Vex, tag those identities, she murmured. Log and encrypt the feed. Now. Done. The Vorn reached into its robe, pulling out a smooth, oblong crystal. Eliminate their orbital AI cores, it said. Start with Halcyon. Elara froze. They weren't planning to spy. They were planning to kill. Back at Interstellar Intelligence Command, Elara stormed into the analysis chamber. Holograms burst to life. Maps, species dossiers, transmission logs. We have a Council-backed operation coordinated between at least 3 alien species, she told her team. They're not just extracting data. They're preparing to dismantle our defenses. Agent Vex slid in beside her. They mentioned Halcyon. That's a kill order. Alara's jaw tightened. Then we respond. Hard. She paced in a tight line. We'll feed them fake schematics. Launch a decoy signal through the usual military channel, with data on a non-existent orbital EMP defense grid. We'll disguise it as unintentional leakage. Director Malenko raised an eyebrow. You want to bait them? They're arrogant. They think we're primitive. They won't resist a juicy new morsel. When they take the bait, we trace the pull line directly to the operatives running the siphon. And if they realize it's fake, then we improvise, like we always do. 2 nights later, the trap was set. In the heart of the compound, one of the cloaked operatives leaned over a console glowing faintly blue. The false schematic was being siphoned, just as Elara had planned. Back in Geneva, Earth's analysts tracked the transmission bounce. It's not just go to the Thalikai mainframe, Vex whispered, eyes wide. It's jumping, repeating, bouncing through Council black relay lines. The final node, she paused, is buried under the Galactic Council's central archive. On Tier 3, the breath left the room. Elara spoke the thought they all shared. This isn't a rogue op. This is systemic, and it goes all the way up. Later, Elara sat alone in her command office, staring out at the stars. She had joined Earth's intelligence forces believing the Council stood for something greater. Peace, unity, justice. But all she saw now was fear. Ancient empires clinging to control, terrified that a young species might one day stand beside them as equals. She rested her hands on the table. They fear what we might become. And maybe they were right to, but fear did not excuse treachery. They came to Earth in masks and shadows. Now Earth would unmask them, not with war, not with chaos, but with the one thing humans had perfected over centuries of betrayal and survival. Justice. Breach protocols. The air inside the tactical command deck of Fort Aegis felt too still, like the silence before a storm. Suspended high in Mars orbit, the hidden black site station pulsed faintly behind its cloaked exterior, a ghost in the void. Commander Elara Rhys stood at the center of it all, a storm inside her own skin. Her spine was straight, but her fingers twitched at her sides. She had made the call. Now she had to carry it through. Across the projection table, the final simulation blinked green. Strike Team Aegis 1 is in position, reported Agent Vex. Entry point synchronized to their perimeter drone sweep. Elara nodded, jaw tight. No casualties, no collateral. We hit hard and clean. Confirm weapons settings. Non-lethal. Neurostunners only. EM disruption field is primed. Behind her, Director Malenko hesitated. We're about to breach a Galactic Council diplomatic zone. This will make history or start a war. We're already in one, Elara said quietly. We're just the only ones not fighting yet. The Thalikai compound was asleep when the humans came. 6 figures dropped from orbital insertion pods, their armor cloaked in adaptive stealth. No sound, no light, just shadows sliding between the compound's elegant spires. Inside, the Council operatives continued their clandestine work, unaware that their final transmission had been a lie. The fake Earth defense schematic now sat nestled like a ticking bomb in their stolen data vault, tagged, tracked, and baited. When Aegis 1 struck, it happened in less than 10 seconds. Neurostun pulses arced through the air, dropping the guards before alarms could sound. EM fields surged, blinding internal sensors and disabling off-world comms. Operatives, Thalikai, Vorn, and at least one disguised Hadric were seized before their minds could catch up with their panic. They weren't warriors. They were diplomats, spies, agents, and used to facing an enemy that struck without hesitation. And worse, with evidence. Inside the command chamber, a Vorn screeched and lunged toward the console, perhaps to trigger a failsafe or erase a drive. Aegis 1's leader struck him clean across the skull with a baton charge to disable neurological pathways. The alien collapsed with a grunt. The drive blinked once, then shut down. Secure the data, the squad leader ordered. Pack up the vault. We're extraction ready. At Fort Aegis, under tight magnetic locks and thick walls of layered shielding, the prisoners were lined up, bound, sedated, and kept in containment fields calibrated specifically for non-human biology. Elara stood in the observation chamber, watching them through reinforced glass. Her face was unreadable, but her eyes were blazing. You recognize this one? Vex asked beside her, pointing to the tall, violet-skinned Thalikai in the second cell. That's Relak Khan's second aide, Elara said. Council clearance level 5. The kind of person who doesn't sneeze without a half-dozen treaties protecting them. And now he's behind bars, on a human station, held by what the Council sees as primitives. Elara allowed herself a brief, humorless smile. Maybe they should have thought of that before they tried to kill Halcyon. Vex glanced at the datapad in her hand. We pulled the full archive from the compound's mainframe. It's all here, Elara. Years of intelligence theft, surveillance logs, communication with off-world assets, even contingency strike plans. The Council doesn't just spy on us. They train for destabilization. Elara's voice was steel, and they got caught by the species they underestimated. 2 hours later, Earth's secure channel flared with incoming priority codes. A hologram bloomed in the air, crackling under encryption. The golden insignia of the Galactic Council's executive assembly spun slowly. A pale, multi-eyed being glared down through the feed. Chancellor Vertenla, a senior official of the Council. You have violated every statute of interstellar conduct, the Chancellor hissed. Diplomatic compounds are sacrosanct. Return our delegates and cease this aggression, or Earth will face formal sanctions. Elara stepped forward into the frame, her hands folded behind her back. No, she said calmly. Your delegates were caught engaging in illegal espionage. We have the data, the witnesses, and the suspects in custody. Earth's sovereignty is not up for negotiation. You do not have the authority to detain Council citizens. You gave us that authority, Elara said. Article 19, Clause 3 of the Accord. In the event of credible planetary threat, member states may enact emergency breach protocols for self-defense. We invoked it. Legally. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. This will not go unanswered. Elara didn't blink. It already has. Later, in the stillness of the command deck, Elara sat with her fingers interlocked, head bowed slightly. The adrenaline had worn off. What came next would not be covert, nor clean. The galaxy would come awake now. Eyes would turn. She knew the Council would lash out, politically or otherwise. But something had changed. For the first time in Earth's short interstellar history, they weren't reacting. They were choosing the terms. And that mattered more than fear. We're done being watched from the shadows, she whispered. She looked up, gaze fierce. Now the galaxy watches us. We who were silent. The Council chamber on Tier 3 was a cathedral of stars, a domed vault of shimmering light where the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy convened. Thousands of species had stood in this chamber. Laws had been written here, treaties forged, wars averted, but never had Earth stood here like this. Commander Elara Rhys walked the length of the chamber floor beneath the gaze of dozens of Council envoys, each seated behind elaborate sigils of their homeworlds. Some watched her with disdain, others with amusement, a few with genuine unease. She could feel it, the tremor beneath the surface of their stillness. The Council had summoned Earth to answer for its violation of interstellar law. But today, Earth wasn't here to apologize. She was here to accuse. At her side, a clear crystalline case hovered, sealed and encoded. Inside it sat the extracted memory cores, stolen data, and decrypted communications that exposed the truth. Years of espionage, interference, and sabotage sanctioned by factions within the Galactic Council. She stepped forward and activated the holodisplay. Footage played in the air, silent but damning. The Thalikai envoy whispering to the Vorn agent. The stolen data routes. The attempt to disable Halcyon. The kill commands. The lies. Murmurs erupted across the chamber. Chancellor Vertenla rose slowly, antennae bristling. This is an unauthorized broadcast, Commander. These records are classified Council operations. Classified operations conducted on a sovereign world without consent. Elara cut in, voice ringing through the hall. You broke your own laws to contain a rising civilization. You feared our growth, our innovation, our defiance, and you acted in cowardice. Several envoys shifted uncomfortably. One of the insectoid representatives clicked their mandibles. A reptilian delegate narrowed their luminous eyes. You think we didn't notice the way you handled the Zerion Accords? Or how Earth's funding allotments were delayed again and again? This wasn't oversight. This was design. Elara let the words hang there. Then she said what none of them expected. But we are not asking for your permission anymore. In Geneva, across Earth, and throughout the Martian colonies, the broadcast of Elara's speech spread like wildfire. Humanity watched, tens of billions strong, as one of their own stood in the seat of galactic power and refused to bow. Children stopped in their classrooms. Workers froze in corridors. Soldiers in training halted mid-step. Old and young alike gathered around screens as Elara Rhys spoke for them all. For the generations who dreamed of the stars. For the ones who sacrificed to get there. And for the ones used once they arrived. Back on Tier 3, Elara turned toward the Council floor. I present formal charges against the agents of the Thalikai, Vorn, and Hadric delegations for illegal infiltration, sabotage, and conspiracy to undermine a Council member state. We submit evidence for tribunal review and request a full investigation under Accord Protocol. Vertenla sneered. You presume to dictate Council justice? No, Elara said. I invoke it, word for word. Silence fell. Then, from across the chamber, a soft, unexpected voice spoke. I second the motion. All eyes turned. It was the Karnathi envoy, a tall, crystalline being whose people had once warred against Earth, but respected strength above all else. I have reviewed the data, the envoy said. If even a portion is true, then Earth's claim is valid. This cannot go ignored. A second voice joined, then a third. Old enemies, old neutrals, not allies, but not dismissive anymore. Bertenla stepped back, stunned. The power had shifted, and it would not return to where it once lay. Hours later, Elara stood in the council's reflection hall, her hands still shaking, though her face showed none of it. She looked up at the galaxy etched into the ceiling, each star carved into crystal by hands long dead. Agent Vex approached quietly behind her. You did it, Vex said. They've frozen the delegates' immunity. An official tribunal has been scheduled. We got them. No, Elara said softly. We got their attention. That's all. Isn't that what we wanted? Elara turned to her. There was pain behind her calm. What I wanted was to believe in this place, in the promise of something greater. But all we found was a mirror. They're just like us. Afraid, greedy, protective, human. She touched the star etched above Earth's nameplate. Now we know the truth. We're not here to be accepted. We're here to survive. Same as always. As Elara returned to Earth days later, 100 world leaders met her on the tarmac. She didn't wave, didn't smile. She just looked up, past the skies, toward the void where politics played out like shadow games across galaxies. And in her chest, where fear once lived, something else had taken root. Resolve. They would not be broken. They would not be managed. They would not stay quiet again.